I think these little gestures help wake us up, which is really the point of the whole path. Since the Buddha's very name, Buddha, means awake. And of course what we're awakening from are dreams. Just as at night we have dreams and we awaken in the morning, but we have dreams throughout our days. We walk down the street thinking and seeing the world through a haze of interpretation and value judgments and names and stories that we conjure. And the topic for tonight is these stories and how we work with them. And in fact, the topic for tonight is meditation and working with the emotions. Now, in Buddhism, the emotions are described in a variety of different ways. Depending on the level, you might say, of the teachings. So at the beginning level, or what we call the foundational level of the teachings, the Hinayana level of the teachings, the emotions are seen as something, as defilements. In fact, they're called, the Sanskrit word for them is klesha. And it means defilement. And the idea is that you want to get rid of them. Passion, aggression, jealousy, pride, indifference, gluttony, all of these. At the Mahayana stage of the path, though, the emotions are seen a bit differently. And in fact, the idea is not to get rid of the emotions at the Mahayana, the middle stage of the path, the so-called greater vehicle. Rather, the idea is that one could transform the emotions. And transform them into what? Wisdom. They transform into different kinds of wisdom. Wisdom really, in here, refers to the different qualities of intelligence that exist in the present moment. So, for instance, anger transforms into discriminating awareness wisdom, which is the wisdom that can see how everything is put together and comes apart. Sort of ultimate analysis. Very intellectual. And passion transforms into the wisdom that appreciates the beauty and the textures and the ugliness and all the qualities of the way things present themselves, the vivid surface appearances. And gluttony, greed, transforms into the aspect of the present moment that is so enriching, full, like a treasure chest, and so on. This is the Mahayana, or the middle stage of the path, this idea of transformation. At the Vajrayana, or the last stage of the path, one is not trying to rid oneself of the emotions at all, nor is one trying to transform them, which is seen as a still subtle way of trying to get rid of them. I'm going to transform them into something better. And at the Vajrayana stage of the path, they say that the practitioner recognizes that the passions are wisdom. They recognize them. There's no idea of change or transformation. It's simple recognition. The key to that recognition, transformation, even the key to getting rid of the emotions, is remembering to come back. It's that simple. Remembering to come back from dream. At every stage of the path, that is the technique. That is the hallmark. That one remembers that one is dreaming and lets it go and comes back into the present moment, just as we were doing in our meditation practice a few minutes ago. It's like we're giving up that forward lean into the future, and we're coming back into the present moment. He's saying yes. That's all right. Yes. It's such an extraordinary and powerful and life-changing thing to do, to come back to the present. I mean, ultimately, it means giving up one's sense of journey to somewhere better, one hopes. It means giving up one's, attempt to flee from what you fear is lurking around the corner. And instead, we simply relax into this present moment. The normal state of affairs is that we are constantly thinking, dreaming. And these dreams are described in Buddhist psychology, you might say. That's what... when Buddhism goes to a new country, historically, it's always found some convenient and simpatico cultural manifestation to translate itself into the culture of that country. So when Buddhism went to China, for instance, I'm familiar with that. That's what I studied in college, Chinese history. It found Taoism and the language of Taoism. And you might say that it adopted a lot of Taoist language and cultural forms as a way of translating itself into Chinese culture. And it changed it very powerfully. And I think that in coming to America, Buddhism has found as its sort of cultural translator Western psychology. And its most simpatico cultural form, the way of translating itself into our understanding. So these realms, these 6 realms that are called, it's more complex than that. They're what are called the 3 worlds, the 3 dhatus. There's the formless realm, the realm of pure form, and then there's the realm of desire, or the world of desire. And within the world of the desire, there are what we are familiar with as being the 6 realms, which are the God realm, the jealous God realm, the realm of the jealous gods. Those are the people who aren't gods but would like to be gods, really want to be gods. And then there's the human realm, and then there's the animal realm, the realm of the hungry ghosts, and the hell realm. Those are the 6 realms. The hell realm is the one you really don't want. And what these realms are, you see, is primarily they're emotional portraits of individuals who are dominated by a particular emotional caste or style, you might say. What is an emotion from the Buddhist perspective? It's a combination of, on the one hand, a conceptual story that we're telling ourselves about who we are and what the world is and what our hopes and fears are and our prospects and problems. And it's a conceptual story, and on the other hand, it's an energetic relationship. So, if we're full of hatred, the storyline might be, that's so-and-so, they stole from me, they took from me, they harmed me, they were selfish and they robbed me, they violated me, and I hate them. I want to kill them. I want to push them out of my world. I want to push them out of the universe. And so the energetic aspect of that story is to push something violently away, which is what hatred is all about. You want to kill it. You want to get it out of your realm of experience. And you've got this storyline about why. Or if the emotion is passion, which is the emotion of the human realm, it might be, it's so beautiful, it's so tasty, it's so delightful, I want to absorb it, I want to consume it, I want to pull it close, I want to make love to it, I want to meld with it, I want to dissolve into it, I want to dissolve it into me, I want to really just revel in the beauty and the tastiness and the sheer erotic delight of that object, that other thing. And of course, the energetic aspect of that is that you want to pull it towards you. Make love to it, consume it, seduce it, magnetize it, which is the fundamental action of passion, magnetizing. So each emotion has its energetic aspect. Trungpa Rinpoche once said it's like the energy aspect is like water, and the conceptual aspect is like paint that's been poured into the water. The water is flowing. It has power, it has a particular temperature and emotion, and it might be turbulent, it might be placid, but it's got paint in it that gives it a color. That's the energy of the emotions colored by the storylines we give them. Now the problem with this, of course, is that these emotions are very painful. And we never really get satisfaction. Even the pleasurable emotions ultimately are unsatisfactory. They don't quite make it. They dissolve, they disappear, today's pleasure is gone tomorrow. Turns sour, might even go bad and become rancid. That love affair turns into a nightmare. Whatever it might be. So they're very distrustworthy, these emotions. There's a slogan they have at the Shambhala Center, trying to get people to meditate. They say, change your mind, change the world. And that's very true. In the teachings, they say that gods see H2O, water, as ambrosia. It's an elixir. It's delightful. It tastes amazing. Hell beings see it as molten lava, pouring down their throats and burning their guts out. Hungry ghosts see it as pus. Disgusting, but they're so hungry they'll eat almost anything. And animals just consume it sort of blindly. And human beings, they might see it as a nice glass of wine. Do I like this Chardonnay? This is a nice bouquet. I think this year was particularly good. That's the quality of the human realm is. And maybe, an asura, a jealous god, the warriors, might see it as hard liquor. That's my guess. Who knows? But the idea is that depending on your conceptual framework and your emotional story that you're seeing the world through, you see the world differently. If you're a hell being, you see it as a constant threat. Everywhere you go, there are threats to your life. It's constant fear. If you're a god, you see everything as absolutely delightful. They say gods, everything they see is beautiful, everything they smell is perfume, everything they taste is delicious. They make love with a glance. They don't have to do it the messy way human beings do. They just make a little glance, and they make love, have orgasms. So the emotions are fleeting, transient, powerful. They distort our world. And they are something that arises in our minds all the time and take us away. Many of them are very, very unpleasant. The ones having to do with fear, in particular, can be very frightening and ill-making. We make one physically uncomfortable. So how do we work with these in meditation? What is the point? It's just the same as everything else. One brings one's awareness to the emotions. And the first thing you do is to cut the storyline, the dream. Until you do that, one is lost in the dream. It's just like dreaming at night. You don't even know you're doing it. You're just busy, dreaming. Let's say it's a dream of fear. You've got some terrible situation threatening. And you escape from the fear every now and then. You go to a movie, have a drink, call up a friend, make love. But then, when the distraction's gone, the fear comes back. The story repeats. You tell yourself that same story again. And when the story comes, that fear arises. You can feel it in your gut, like a churning in the stomach, until you find another distraction, which is how people turn into alcoholics, addicts of all kinds, drugs, sex, gambling, whatever. Oftentimes we just turn on the TV, go to the movie, and get temporary relief. So the way we work with this in meditation, we're not trying to get rid of the emotions. Not at all. We are trying to transform them or recognize them. And the way we do it first is by stopping the dream and coming back to completely open awareness, just like we were practicing. We come back into the present moment. And if you're experiencing an emotion, once you cut the story, the energetic aspect might still be there, that feeling in your body. And you can bring your awareness to that. See it. Don't try to get rid of it. Become aware of it. It'll go soon enough if you do this. So you can, when you're experiencing an emotion, you see that you're lost in the story. And as soon as you do that, as soon as you see you're lost in it, you're not. You're back. And you could say, thinking even, if you wish. And then you become aware of where that energy is, what the energy is. How does it feel? Take a good look at it. Is it hot? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your head? Is it in your chest? Is it delightful? Is it, maybe it's a pleasurable emotion? And you see it. Really what we're doing is we're making friends with the energy. This is the path of sanity, as waking up from the dreams, coming out of the realms. Until we do this, we will live in the realms one way or the other. They're very pernicious. these stories that are realms. You could study them. Trungpa Rinpoche describes them in Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism rather well. And I think maybe in The Myth of Freedom, does he? I don't know if he gets there in The Myth of Freedom, to the describing the realms. And I'm mentioning that in The Myth of Freedom because Paulden's reading it. Is it in The Myth of Freedom too? No? Cutting Through, yes, definitely. And there are three ways that we experience these realms, these emotional portraits. One is that we're actually born into a realm. I mean, we're human beings. We've got human bodies, right? And we're not animals. And I have never seen a literal God, or a hell being or hungry ghost, but there are people supposedly who do. But certainly I've seen animals, and I know I'm not an animal. And then the second way to understand the realms is that as a human being, you have a predominant neurotic psychology. You have a particular style. It may be that you're a human being, or it might be that you're a jealous god. Jealous gods, I like the jealous gods portraits. I know them. I was in business for 23 years, and I met some jealous gods, as well as gods. I mean, the gods are the ones who've gotten there. They've made it. They're in heaven. They're enjoying it all, right? The jealous gods want to get there. And these are the warriors. They're fierce, highly intelligent probably, and dangerous. Don't get in their way. And they tend to only see soldiers in their army, and everybody else fades into the background. And enemies. They see enemies. The other soldiers, right? And their leaders. So they see it, the world as a war, and they are in battle and they want to win the war. They're storming the gates of heaven. That's what they're doing. They're sieging heaven. And if you're not part of the battle, you're not even there. You're barely present. I remember a friend of mine, about my age, and he has a young assistant, girl, and they work a lot together, and they get along very well, and she's very attractive. He told me, he said to her, I forgot her name, make it up, Anne. If we were in a bar together and I was sitting there, would you be attracted to me? And they're friends, remember? They work together. She said, Jake, honestly, I wouldn't even see you. That's what he told me. I mean, we see what we are ready to see, what our story, lets us see, and we filter out the rest. So this process of meditation is really a process of waking up from the stories. The third level of understanding these emotions, these emotional portraits of the realms, is that you can be a human being in the body of a jealous god and experience a flash of hell. You have just lost the big battle, and everything is being taken from you, and you are freaked. You're experiencing a momentary hell. It'll pass probably, maybe. So there are these three levels: what our physical bodies, what we're born into, our predominant psychology, which probably lasts for many, many years. It's our neurotic styles. And then what we experience throughout the day, these emotions of, envy and jealousy and resentment and passion and attraction and joy, that might come to us when we think that things are going our way. And those come and go as we move in and out of the different realms, those three styles. Really, it's about a very different way to live, because when we live in the realms, we are living in a forward lean. It's as though we're on a treadmill and it's moving under us and we can't stop our feet because we're afraid that if we do, we'll fall on our face. And the driving force of that treadmill, of that forward motion, is anxiety. It might be low grade, it might be high grade. It's an underlying fear. And this is the fundamental mechanism of suffering from a Buddhist perspective. Buddhism is, the Buddha taught his main teaching. The Buddha said, I'm going to back up, he said, my teaching is suffering and the path leading away from suffering. That's what he taught. Meditation is that path. And meditation is the act again and again of remembering to come back from the dream. Come back. And you come back to whatever it is. It's not some ideal state. It's not some open clarity of thoughtlessness. It might be you're coming back to a dream of envy. You're just waking up and realizing, I'm having an envious dream. A dream of resentment. That's so-and-so. They shouldn't have said that to me. I had a blah, blah, blah. And suddenly you realize, I'm having this repetitive, I've been doing this for days, years. One can see one's patterns, and they often last for long, long periods of time, don't they? Sometimes we go to a shrink. Psychoanalysis, that's a good one. And then you get a mirror. That's what a guru is for too, to mirror you that way and show you what your patterns are, your habitual, repetitive storylines. Because the problem is that when we're so immersed in them, we don't even know we're doing them. Just like at night. Don't even know you're dreaming. So the idea is to become conscious and realize that we're dreaming, and then we could step out of it, step out of this dream world and into the real world. Although that might be an interesting proposition, because in doing that, we're giving up an old friend. That story we've told ourselves about where we are going, where we've been, who we are. In fact, we're giving up me. See, me is the protagonist of this story. And every time we come present, fully present, there is no me, because we're not talking to ourselves anymore. When we talk to ourselves, we say, me, 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 me. I want, I'm afraid, I hope, I love, I fear, I'm horny, I'm hungry, I'm sad, I. And as soon as we wake up, it dissolves. And then we're present, and there is no me. And we can see, oh yeah, I was stuck in that dream of me. Me and my ambition. Me and my paranoia. Whatever it might be, all those different variations we've got. So many of them. But each one of us has our predominant style. It's really interesting. And the more we practice, the more we will see it. It's habitual, repetitive. And the only way we can see it is when we come present. And in so doing, step out of it. Personally, from the point of view of being in that dream, stepping out of the dream can be a little scary. It's like giving up the reference point. I got an email the other day with a quote from Trungpa Rinpoche. I love this quote. He says, "The bad news is we're falling through empty space. You are. I am. We are. The good news is there's no ground. We imagine that there's ground, the ground of these stories. It's like we create a whole set, like a stage set. But it's false. It's just hanging there in the sky. So the practice again and again. Come back. You can use anything as your object of awareness. Anything. Your thoughts, your emotions, especially your emotions. They're a great thing to use as an object of awareness. You come back from the dream and you see what you're feeling, what you've been thinking. You let the story go, and then you stay there and stay there with the feeling, the energy in your body for a while. It'll go at some point, but it might last a bit longer, and you can be there with it, make friends with it. So that's all I have to say tonight about working with the emotions. It's really all the same thing, isn't it? Coming back, remembering to come back. That's our only job as we walk down the street, as we walk through our lives. Just coming back. All this complicated Buddhist doctrine, and it gets so... there are books and books and books and books, Buddhist psychology, but all in the end, all it amounts to is coming back. It's like, the Buddha had this very stupid disciple. I'm sure some of you know this story. And the guy couldn't understand the teachings. So the Buddha gave him a broom and told him to sweep, and just every time he took a stroke with the broom to say, sweeping, sweeping. Guy got enlightened. Yes, Paulden, wait, hey, hold on, let's see. We're going to pass a mic. Maybe it's one of the other things. One of the other knobs, I mean. That's got it.
So my aunt actually told me about that story, but it seemed like the Tibetan version is a bit different, because she said that the disciple, the Buddha told the disciple to say Om Mani Padme Hum, the Tibetan Chinese mantra. So every time he said the mantra, his bad karmas were, he was able to get rid of his bad karmas while he was sweeping. But interesting,
That's nice.
Two
That's
versions
nice.
to the story.
Right. Karma, your bad karma, good karma, is just the forward momentum of the story that we're trapped in, that we've been telling ourselves about ourselves. It propels us into the next scene of the play, of the movie. It's like if you have a habit of being angry, you've developed this habit. There are people who have. Anything can trigger you, little things that don't trigger other people. Other people, they just roll off their back. And so something happens, somebody looks at you the wrong way, and you are propelled into a little version of hell for a moment, because you get really angry and furious. It's like having molten steel in your chest. So anything that brings us present cuts the karma. It cuts the habit. And in fact, the way, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a wonderful book about karma. He's a Vietnamese Buddhist. Help me here. Alan, do you remember the title of the book? It used to have a terrible title called Transformation at the Base. And then they gave it a new title. But if you look it up under Transformation at the Base, you'll find it. And he talks about how karma, develops out of it. It really is the forward motion of habit. habitual patterns. In Tibetan, they're called namdak, those evil namdaks. Milarepa complains endlessly about the namdaks that torment him. And the way in which we free ourselves from that karma, from those habitual patterns, those stories, is again and again by coming present, by shifting our loyalty from those neurotic stories. We're so loyal to them. We really believe them. And we're shifting our loyalty from them to this beautiful world as it arises so vividly in the present moment. And if you can do it by saying Om Mani Padme Hum, wonderful. Or Hung, Tibetans. Huh? Or sweeping. Or sweeping, yeah. I didn't hear that version of the story. That's a great version. I like that. Om Mani Padme Hum. 1-1. What? This thing shuts off, doesn't it? The batteries are weak, you think?
It's just a setting.
Oh. Okay.
Hello? Yeah. So this forward motion of habits that has its own track. And for people who completely
Completely.
no conscience.
No conscience?
Yeah. Do they follow this karma?
Absolutely. Now I'll repeat the question.
By your own mind too, right?
By the what?
Karma is created by your own mind too. You're absolutely above every law of the universe.
The question is, karma is created by your mind. Absolutely. Karma is the driving mechanism of the stories that we're trapped in. These interpretive, not really true, evaluative, judgment, forward-leaning stories that, coming out of a past, which we imagine, into a future which never arrives, but which we imagine. And the karma, it drives us forward, yes.
So for people who have no conscience, that's not built into their mechanism.
Oh, they still are doing it, absolutely.
They would have
What?
they would not have self-punishing mechanism. So then, therefore, there's no karma that can be put on them.
Oh yes, there's plenty of karma. I'll repeat the question. One's asking basically about sociopaths, people who have no conscience, who, just pursue their own benefit without any, and to the detriment of others, harming others, without any conscience. But every action has a cause and an effect, and they will suffer, as they lose things, because maybe they're pursuing some goal and they fail to get it. They pursue it without conscience, but that doesn't mean they're going to get what they want. And then they're going to suffer the pain of wanting something but not having it, as an example.
The effect that perpetuates the karma.
What?
The effect.
Perpetuates the karma. Yes, the effect perpetuates the karma. Yes, even if they're conscienceless, they might not be punishing themselves, but other people will.
For people who are overridden with guilt, that's another spectrum.
People who are overridden with guilt, yes.
Everything is self-punishing. So that is that how do you explain karma that way? That means that they didn't need to do. But then it's just psychological, or like you said, it's combined with psychology, which is interesting. Like, so for people who are overridden with guilt, and how do you explain the karma that way?
The question is, how do you explain what is karma for a person who is consumed with guilt? right? It's not real. No, they're imagining it. They are lost in a story in which they have committed evil deeds and they are going to be punished, or they are being punished for it. And it's an evil story. And that's the karma. The action of the karma is that when you're caught in the story, you suffer in the terms of the story. And you also get good things according to the terms of the story. But in all stories, stories, a good story can turn bad, and will sooner or later. And bad will turn good. And that's why samsara is depicted as a wheel. In Tibetan the word is korwa, means wheel, goes around and around and around. And 1 minute you're up, the next minute you're down, and the next minute you're up, the next minute you're down. Patrul Rinpoche, in Words of My Perfect Teacher, he says, 1 minute you're going to, if you're rich, you'll be poor. If you're poor, you'll be rich. If you're loved, you'll be hated. If you're reviled, you'll be loved. If you're famous, you'll be unknown. If you're a completely unknown, you'll be famous and adored. It just goes around and around and around. So really what karma is the reaping the inevitable events that come when we're lost in stories, and the way that the stories evolve and change. Tim?
I heard a teaching once that I found pretty useful on the subject of karma, and the teaching was that one shouldn't wonder about the karma of others, that it's not a productive way to spend one's time. So if I see someone who's homeless and they're sitting in the street begging, it's not really useful for me to wonder what that person may or may not have done that resulted in the circumstances in which they find themselves. But I should wonder, in the circumstances in which I find myself, what, again, with like dependent origination, what action I may have taken that resulted in my finding myself in this situation. Like if I'm working on the perfections and I may have stumbled and made a bad choice or taken an action that wasn't really a good action, that might result in my circumstances in which I find myself right now. But trying to analyze the karma of others is not a useful way to spend energy. And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. I mean, I could speculate, but speculating on my own circumstances and my own situations is more productive than wondering about others. And in fact, wondering about others might be taking my attention away from the present moment. Wondering about somebody else's story is even less productive than dealing with my own story.
Couldn't it also be dangerous to analyze your own story?
Analyze it?
Yeah. Tim was saying that it can be dangerous or mistaken.
I was aiming more at unproductive. Like
right.
Why something happened to someone else is not nearly as interesting
right.
as why I find myself in these circumstances.
Okay.
Right, but wouldn't it also be the same to do that to yourself?
Peter, you had a comment?
I think that the worrying about others is part of our story.
Excellent.
Well played.
Right. Part of our stories. Could be. On the other hand, if one is opening one's mind and heart to others, it could be the aspect of awareness and compassion.
But in that case, we don't worry about it.
No. We wouldn't be worrying about it. And we wouldn't be feeling revulsion or anger or, the push-pull of those emotions. But we might empathize. And that could be very enlightened. Alan.
Rinpoche has said several times, we simply know what's in other people's minds when we don't even know what's in our own. So from the point of view, Tim's point being very well taken, I think, that whatever we think is going on with the other person, as Peter was saying, it's just made up. I mean, we don't really have a clue, or we may have a tiny shred, depending on how open we are, our insights. But I think it's,
I think we can. I mean, we all have the ability to respond intelligently to each other in ways that we know are going to be helpful or harmful. And to that extent, I think we can understand what's going on in another person. And maybe we're not going to know their history or how they got to where they are, but I think that you can open your mind and your heart and actually, feel a lot of what's going on in someone else and respond to that in a way that's accurate or helpful, don't you think? I mean, we do it all the time.
I think responding to other people's pain, yes, that's definitely the case, since we all feel pain, and we can see pain in others.
Yeah.
But to go beyond that and try and come up with stories about why they're in that situation, why is this drunk guy sitting on the sidewalk, and we get into blame, and we get into all kinds of judgmental, twists and turns. But I think just responding to the pain of others that's what's
Sure.
always thought of that.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, I mean, you don't know somebody's history, how they got to where they are, but you might, be able to intuit without going into a story a lot, if you just allow yourself to feel, I think. But it's a funny thing, that line between accurate perception and imagination. Yes, Tim?
I think there might be, in some cases, a root of fear in that as well. Like, I would like to know this person's story so that I can avoid making whatever mistakes landed them in this situation, when this just becomes another, planning wheel of...
My story.
Yeah, I need to make sure that I don't make that mistake. And meanwhile, life is completely passing by while all this planning is happening for no reason or no good end.
Yes. Peter wants to say something. Are we giving up on the mic?
The batteries are dead. We need new batteries.
Oh, really? That's too bad. There's some in my briefcase, but okay.
I think we should start fresh every time.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to say that there is a very clear distinction between making concern about others, or which can be anything from worrying to obsession, being all part of the story. But there is the difference, for example, speaking from my own experience, the shock of actually thinking about others has gotten me out of my stories. That all of a sudden, all that was so solid about what so-and-so was doing, and how this was this, and all this was done, which was just continuing the story. But then, and I say all of a sudden because it is kind of like a flash,
Mm-hmm.
if you think of others in a genuine sense, then it actually breaks the obsession. It's a way out of the...
Indeed. There is a skill that's taught to people in the helping professions, which people here may be trained in, called active listening. And the distinction is made between sort of normal listening. Normal listening is like, you're talking to somebody and they say, I just got back from Italy. And you say, oh, I was in Italy 3 months ago. That's not active listening. That's going back into your own, your own story, huh? Well, whatever it might be. It might be, oh, I wish I could go to Italy too. Then you've got a hungry ghost answer, or I hate Italy. Then you got a hell answer. You can come up with all of them. But the main point is that one person speaks and the other person isn't listening so much as they are. They bounce. They go inside and they find something inside. So that's sort of level 1 listening. Level 2 listening, when we're describing active listening, is it's kind of like two lovers sitting across a table at a candlelit dinner, and they're just focused on each other. It's like you're in a beam, you've done that. You've been so focused on the other person, you forget about yourself. It's concentration. And you might say it's shamatha meditation. The first level is like discursive thought, right? Thinking. Second level is shamatha. We're focused. The third level is the best level. And what that is, that's the third level of active listening, is you are there not listening to your own interior monologue, dialogue, whatever, interior discussion. You're listening to the other person, but you're seeing that other person 360 degrees in time and space. You're right there open, so that you can feel that other person. And it allows you to really hear what that other person is saying, and be much more responsive and perhaps helpful if you're in a helping profession to them.
That's the Vipassana level.
Exactly. That's Vipassana level. So we could do that. And the interesting thing is, at the first level, you're totally caught up in your own karma. You're just, it's habit. At the last level, you're cutting the karmic chain and being there in the present moment, available, responsive. Tim.
I've had some experiences recently that what you just said reminded me of. We talked about bringing the attention back to the breath whenever it goes somewhere else. And in a conversation with someone like you just described, sometimes it's possible to continually bring the attention back to the other person. So when they say, I was in Italy, instead of telling them that I've also been in Italy, I could say, what was your favorite thing about Italy? What do you remember best? What was the moment that most aggravated you? And continually bring it back to that point. And so even when I'm not in a helping profession, I've had some really powerful experiences by just keeping not my attention only, but the attention of the entire conversation on the other person. It's pretty remarkable, but I stumbled onto it by accident. I wish I could take credit for it.
It's terrific. Yeah.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it is amazing.
It's very parallel to keeping the attention on the breath. This is the object that the conversation is now going to be focused on. It's not going to go all these crazy places about my judgments about Italy or what I remember about Italy or what someone told me about Italy, what I saw on TV about Italy. It's like, no, I don't think so. Very, very powerful stuff.
Yes, and then you begin to actually see the other person much more vividly.
They open up like a flower. It can be really remarkable because apparently some people don't have that experience in their life very much, and so sometimes they are shocked because they don't even know what's happening, which can be very fun, actually.
Yeah, they say that in the practice of that kind of listening, the virtue on the part of the listener is curiosity. Curiosity about what's happening in that other person. What's going on there? Well, perhaps we should end for this evening. And I think we've got some watermelon. We like to end, for those of us who know it, with the dedication of merit. This is a very Mahayana Buddhist thing to do. It's an act of generosity, giving up one's selfishness and egotism, as it were. Gesture in that direction. I don't know where they are, Alan. We can elide the middle paragraph. Okay? Well, we'll get them out next week. Okay, we'll have them. So, by this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. I'll just say one thing, about this active listening. I'm realizing, Trungpa Rinpoche, that's all he ever did. That's all he ever did. It's amazing. He just was always listening. He loved people, and he just wanted to, he was so interested. I'll tell you a story. Are we still on the camera? Oh my gosh. I want to tell you a story. There's a game that I'm going to tell you about, and you can play it, but you'll never be able to be it, because I'm telling you how the game works. And I can't do it any other way. It was a game that we used to play when it went around among the Buddhist community when we first got together as Trungpa Rinpoche's students. We just called it the game. It had no name.
Wasn't that the qualities game?
No, it's not the qualities game. This is another game. That was a game too. Rinpoche loved that game. This game, here's the way the game works: is you send somebody out of the room, and they're going to come back in and play the game, and everybody else, you explain the game to. And here's what the game is. Everybody else is going to be that person. You're going to answer every question that person asks as though you were them. Okay? And their job is to figure out what the game is. So they come back in, and the first thing you do is you say to them, whoever's running the game, they're just running it at the beginning. And what they say is, okay, your job is to figure out what this game is. And the person says, okay. And we say, you can do it by asking questions. You can ask any question you like. And we will always answer it, once the game starts, within the context of the game. And then you give the person some advice. This is before the game starts. The advice is ask concrete questions. Don't ask questions about the game. You can, if you wish, but we recommend you don't. So here's what happens. So the person starts asking questions. They might say things like, say I'm it. I don't know what the game is. And I'd say, let's say, okay, I've got a daughter, right? I've got two daughters. So I say to Peter, and I know Peter doesn't have any children, right? You don't have any children, because I'm playing the game. So I say to Peter, Peter, how many children do you have? What do you answer? No, you're being...
Oh, I'm with them. I have 2 children.
You have 2 children. That's the way he answers, you see? And it goes on like that. The best questions, and I'm sitting here thinking, he's got 2 children? He doesn't have any children.
You wouldn't ask him how many children does he have,
I might.
unless you were already tuned in.
Unless I was tuned in. I know, I'm coming up with I might say to him, Peter, what color is your shirt?
Black.
I'm looking at him, this shirt's blue. What do I make of that? And then I might say to him, I might say, Courtney, are you clear about what this game's about?
Yes. No.
You're not? but
I don't know what it's about.
see, that's the way this game.
I have a clue.
Right. I've seen the game get very nasty. There was a woman who, huh? Oh yeah, I was at. It was painful. It can be very painful. It can be painful. But I've seen people get it like that. Yes, just because they asked very concrete questions like, "What color shirt are you wearing?" And he says black, and and then I ask, somebody else, and I say, "What color is your hair?" What do you answer? One. Huh? Bald? You're bald? See, that's the way you get it fast. The way you don't get it fast is saying, do you understand what this game's about? I saw a woman once who people thought was very neurotic, and paranoid. And she said to somebody, do you like me? And the person said, not very much. So we played the game with Trungpa Rinpoche, eventually. There was a group of us. It went on for an hour and a half. he couldn't get it.
But he was it?
He was it. He was it. And he couldn't figure out what the game was. Huh? No. He didn't make up the game. No. We played it with him. We introduced him to it. And he couldn't get it. And I finally realized that the reason that he wasn't getting it was because there was no reference back to himself. You know, he wasn't saying, wait a minute, Peter's shirt isn't black and my shirt is black. You know, he was looking at me saying, I wonder why he's saying that. You know, and he just went on and on. He was so interested in each person. He was asking all kinds of questions. And finally, after an hour and a half, I remember the way he got it was he said to a person, what kind of alcohol do you like to drink? And I think at that time Rinpoche was drinking something really weird. You know, he was always drinking a lot. You know, he drank a lot of alcohol. And the person said to him, I'm drinking Mai Tais. I like Mai Tais these days. And I could see a light bulb go off. I mean, nobody drinks Mai Tais, you know, except he was drinking them. And then he said to the next person, and by the way, this was taking place in this bedroom on a mattress, and I don't know if he was wearing any clothes. I mean, he used to do that all the time, and he was surrounded by this group of we were hippies back in those days, and he says to this person, what kind of interior decoration do you like? And the person says to him, I like the simplicity of Zen with splashes of Tibetan color. He got it, and suddenly he started laughing. And he laughed, and he was holding his sides, and he was rolling on the mattress, and tears coming out of his eyes, and he couldn't stop. It was one of those things, and it went on and on and on. But this was a person who just listened all the time. He just didn't refer back. He just loved people. He was interested in people. That's the way he worked. He just constantly listening. So there's a lesson for me in a way a teacher works. So we should end. I'm sorry, I'm keeping you all too late. We'll end, and we'll have some watermelon.